Hi there, I'm Tori and I will take you through the practice today. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a yin yoga. So we're going to be getting a little bit more deeper in towards the body, in towards the connective tissue, into the ligaments. So it's a very slow practice. We'll be holding poses between 3 to 5 minutes. And we're getting deep in towards the hips today and towards the lower body, but we'll also come in towards the top. So just kind of seeing where you feel the tightness in the body. It's a practice where we learn to observe the body and we get to kind of understand where certain feelings, where certain things come in towards the body, and we're able to take the yoga practice off the mat by learning to observe ourselves in a physical state. So when we come in towards the outside world, we're able to kind of manage ourselves a little bit better. So there's a lot more to yoga than just kind of getting active and doing a vinyasa or a cardio practice. But it's also a good kind of place for the mind, and this one's great for getting deep in towards kind of the connective tissue and really getting a good stretch and flexibility into the body. So what we're going to do to start with, we're going to come into a little bit of breath work. So coming in towards a comfortable seated position, cross-legged or kneeling, or if you want to, feel free as it's yin, just kind of taking your back against the wall with the legs out in front. So just finding a restful state, somewhere that you kind of feel comfortable into the body. What we want to do is make sure that the spine is long towards the sky, so we have length. It just allows the energy to move up the spine easily and to give ourselves a bit of space. So coming into our physical body, so we're just going to close down the eyes or take the gaze down towards the ground in front. And just finding our breath. So just kind of taking a couple of breaths, maybe deep breaths. And just giving ourselves a moment to arrive onto the mat. So as we arrive onto the mat, we just start to feel the body. Starting to release any moments or thoughts that are about our to-do list, about our day. And knowing that the next 45 minutes to an hour is going to be for us and for our body on the mat. Just feeling the breath come in and out of the nose, so maybe it's a little bit cooler on the inhale and a little bit warmer on the exhale. Maybe you're starting to feel the energy move up and down the spine as you breathe, as the body expands on the inhale and depletes on the exhale. We're going to come into a little bit of shepherd's hook breath. Simply placing the breath around the spine, around the brain. It's a nice cleansing breath work in order to get ourselves into a meditative, a soft state. So we're just going to inhale through the nose. We're going to pull the breath up around the spine, down the back of the body, in towards the belly. And then we're just going to let the belly just swirl it around. When you're ready, we just breathe it out through the nose. We're going to do 3 more rounds. So we're going to breathe in through the nose, putting it up around the skull, down the spine, swirling it around the body. When you're ready, just exhaling it out through the nose. Last round, inhaling through the nose, putting it up around the spine, down in towards the belly, letting it swirl around. And then just gently out through the nose. Let's do one more. So inhaling through the nose, putting it up around the spine, down in towards the body, into the sitting bones. Swirling around the belly, we slowly let it out through the nose. And then just gently coming back into your own breath. So when you're ready, Just starting to flicker the eyes open. And then we're just going to gently open in towards the soles of the feet first. So we're going to take ourselves down on towards our tabletop. We're going to tuck the toes under, and we're just going to take the feet to the hip width apart, tucking the toes, placing the weight in towards the feet. So option to stay here if it's too much, to feel that stretch towards the outside, the soles. Otherwise, we're going to walk the hands in. We're going to just tuck our toes in so we feel the stretch in towards the back of the foot. So hands towards the knees of the thighs. We gaze down towards the ground so we feel that stretch. Just using that breath. So we're going to hold here for about 30 seconds. So we're feeling that space. Just breathing deeply. I promise you that you can't hurt yourself in this pose, but it can get quite intense because we tend to grab our toes towards the ground using balance, but also we kind of find ourselves just using the feet in a kind of a flat motion all the time. We never usually kind of hold and stretch. So slowly coming into the last 10 seconds. And then gently we're just going to release the hands down towards the ground, walking them forward. And we're just going to slowly just release the toes. We're just going to give them a little bit of a pat down towards the ground to release. And then we're just gently going to take the bottom towards the heels. We're going to come in towards an ankle stretch. So coming into the opposite direction. So option to bring the knees together, the toes together. And what we're going to do, this might be enough for you if you have any issues in towards the ankles. But otherwise, we're going to slowly just place the weight in towards the back of the foot so the knees start to lift. We feel a lovely deep stretch through the front of the ankles. Hands towards the knees or relaxing down towards the ground to help. And if we can, we're going to hold this pose for about a minute. So what we're doing is we're just activating the meridian lines around the soles of the feet, around the top of the third and fourth metatarsal, which is our liver line. And then we're also opening in towards the back of the foot, which is our gallbladder, which is all totally fine. We're kind of working with these two meridian lines today. So we're coming into the last 20 seconds of the hold. Remembering that we're in our yin classes, in our yin space, we want to move very slowly through practice. We're opening deep in towards joints, in towards our fascia, our connective tissue, so we want to make sure that we're not kind of putting any extra sharp or quick movements in towards the joints. So again, just maybe you want to just pick the feet off, toes come down, just give them a little bit of a circle so we feel a release through the feet, through the ankles. Perfect. So we're going to come in towards our first hold that we're going to hold for a couple of minutes, and just kind of coming in towards a forward fold. So we want to take the legs out towards the front. Toes are going to come up towards the sky. We're just going to give ourselves, feet don't have to be hip width apart. They can be a bit closer, a bit wider. We're looking for a relaxing towards the lumbar spine and in towards the bottom of our hamstrings. So we're going to take a lovely big inhale. And as we exhale, we're just going to slowly release ourselves to fold forward. So the key into here is to find the stretch. If you have any issues in towards the knee, feel free to just lift it up, maybe placing a bolster or some pillows or a wrapped up blanket just underneath the knees to give them a little bit of height, a little bit of bend. We still get the stretch into the hamstring because we're moving ourselves forward, but it just gives us a little bit more space. Any pinching in towards the back of the knees or in towards the hips, just bring yourself up slightly and play with the alignment of the legs. So just seeing whether it's easier to have the toes a little bit further towards the outside, or if you want to kind of just release the legs a little bit further as well. Amazing. So we're going to come in here and we're going to hold this pose for 3 minutes. So again, if you want to come, feel free to just release your forehead down towards the ground. It might be that you want to use a block or a support in towards the neck to start with. And this is just really giving yourself a little bit of space to adjust in towards the pose. what we find with our yin practice is that we're looking to calm down the nervous system in order to find a deeper stretch. And we're only able to find the deeper stretch when the nervous system starts to shut down and switch off. And so therefore we're tapping in towards the parasympathetic nervous system. And the way in which we do this is by holding in a safe space. We hold for a minute, maybe a minute and a half. So we're coming into 1.5 minutes now. And we're going to hold for another minute and a half. And as we come into the halfway through, we can just give ourselves a little bit of a wiggle. Maybe we want to go deeper, but making sure we don't have any issues into the body, any kind of like tight or ripping sensations. We want to be in a space where we're almost comfortable with the uncomfortable. This allows the nervous system to hold the body into a space. And then when you've told it that it's okay to be here, it will release deeper. It will allow the body to sink just a little bit deeper into the pose. So sometimes we can get a little bit of numbing in towards the end of our extremities, like for example our feet or our lower legs. This is fine because we're only holding the pose for a small amount of time. If we're holding for 10 minutes or so, then it's basically stopping the blood supply and releasing out through in towards the nerves. But as we're only holding for a couple of minutes, there's no kind of long-term damage that will be made. So as we come in towards the 3 minutes, we're just going to slowly walk the hands back in towards us. So as we bring ourselves up, we start to feel that release or energy moving in towards the back of the legs. And this is totally fine. This is the sensations that we're looking for in our yin. And the theory is that this is the meridian lines or the energy of chi running through the body, and it's a matter of just the body kind of readjusting. So slowly that kind of sensation starts to peter out and we start to feel our body. So any issues in this pose, in this resting pose, just bring the knees, knocking the knees together so we're able to find that release into the lumbar spine. So we're going to slowly move in towards our next pose, which is going to come in towards our butterfly. So we're going to take the soles of the feet together and the knees are going to come out wide. So we want to hold this pose in a soft pose. So we don't want to be like we would in our yang place, which we'd be holding the legs down towards the side. We want to find a place where we're able just to melt down over and feel the release into the body. So again, doesn't matter where we are. Some days we find that we're tighter than the other. If you're finding that you're not able to fold forward from the pelvis, it can be nice to just lift the hips up just a bit higher. And then, so whether you've got a bolster, it doesn't have to be this high. It can literally just be a block, or it can be a couple of towels or blanket that you roll over. Taking the knees out wide. So what we're looking to do in this pose is get a stretch in towards the inside of the thighs and also in towards the outsides of the hamstrings down the side. So coming to wherever's comfortable for you. We want to take an inhale. And on the exhale, we just slowly start to roll forward. We want to find that motion in the pelvis where we pivot towards the front of the room. And then when you're ready, if you want to, palms can come out wide, hands come upwards And if you want to, just gently taking yourself, the forehead onto a block or somewhere for support. And this will just give us a little bit of space in towards the body. Sometimes yin is taught without props, and this is totally fine because we use the beauty of gravity to allow the body to melt deeper into a pose. But sometimes it's equally quite nice just to take that strain out of the neck or out of the body, wherever it is that you're feeling it's too tight. Puts that little bit more strain into it before it will release. So for this pose, we're going to release, we're going to hold for about 4 minutes. As we start to go in towards the hip poses, we can find that we start to cling on towards spaces within the jaw. So if we can, just giving our jaw a little bit of a wiggle from side to side, just to give a release in towards the body, in towards the hips. And just noticing and observing how the body feels, how the hips feel. As you start to do that, you might actually just feel that physical relief just kind of ripple through the body. We're coming into halfway of the pose. So if you have your head propped up in any way, feel free to just remove the prop slightly or just taking it a little bit further away so you're just millimeters going deeper. The yoga practice is all about observation and patience. So we just give ourselves time to allow to release in towards the body. We've got 1 more minute into the pose. Equally, we want to find the edge in the pose. We want to find a space where we release in towards the body. If we come too deeply into a pose, we might find that we hurt ourselves or that there's a sharp pain or sensation that's not nice. And we don't want to hold in towards that space. We want to kind of find the edge of being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Obviously, if it's too painful, there's no way that we'd be able to hold that pose for any period of time. And so it's knowing and honouring these spaces. We've got 10 seconds left. So using that breath, noticing if we're holding on, and if we are, just taking a little bit of a deeper breath and just gently sighing it out. Slowly we're going to start to walk the hands back in towards us. So we just walk the hands once or twice, bringing it in. We bring the head up as last if it's been folded. And then gently we just take the sides of the knees together and we just bring ourselves up. So we just hold and we feel that release. Maybe you want to just release the bottom down towards the ground so you're able to find that release, that resting pose. Maybe it's arms to the bolster, maybe it's the arms out wide. And it's just finding that release through that stretch. So again, noticing if that feels like a river of kind of energy moving through the muscles. Kind of sometimes it can be quite intense to begin with, and it starts to peter off as the body releases. And also, like I say, any issues into the lumbar spine, bring the knees up and knock them together. Perfect. So we're going to come in towards the outsides of the foot, outside of the hips this time. So just coming towards center, again, just moving slowly. We're going to take, either way, we're going to come in towards each side. So it's kind of a form of shoelace. We're going to take the heels, so they're underneath the knees. So we want to make sure that we're kind of, the feet are parallel. Doesn't matter if the front foot's just slightly out slightly. We're opening in towards the outside of the glutes, and the hips will have a deep opening in towards them. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that space. We're going to inhale the hands high. So we find that length. We want to hinge forward at the hips. So we find that space where we're hinging. As we hinge, we'll find the knees open. Any issues into the knees or they're too much, feel free to just take some props and prop them underneath between the hips and the heel. Sorry, the knees and the heels. Otherwise, we just gently walk ourselves forward. So again, we're going to come into this pose. We're going to hold for 3 minutes on each side. And we're going to just gently release the forehead down towards the ground. So if you need to, like I said before, feel free to grab a block. So we find that space in towards the body. We find that release, finding that support underneath the forehead. And sometimes you can wriggle yourself a little bit deeper into the pose. So if you're curved into the spine, what I'd suggest is that you just take an inhale. As you inhale, just lengthen through the spine. When you lengthen through the spine, you start to feel the sitting bones almost kind of like tilt out towards the back of the body. And then when you're ready, just gently releasing yourself back down in towards that pose. It's nice to be in poses with the hands up towards the sky. All this is doing is allowing the energy to release and surrender. Sometimes the hands are down, we're going to want to kind of grab things. Just taking the hands high, we just release ourselves, giving ourselves a moment of surrender in towards the pose. We've got just over a minute left into the pose. If you haven't done already, maybe just moving yourself just a little bit deeper. Again, as we're working towards the hips, although it's the outside of the hips, it might be that you start to feel those sensations, or you start to feel feelings and emotions may start to creep in. And with our yin practice, we just learn to observe. We're not changing or modifying these emotions and feelings. We just start to honor them and start to understand them. Perfect. So we're going to come out of the pose. We're just going to gently walk the hands back in towards us. So again, just keeping the head soft, bringing the head up, and just bring ourselves back into seated. Perfect. And then gently releasing the legs. So this time we're just going to windscreen wipe the legs from side to side. So taking the feet wide, we're just going to take one knee down towards the ground so we feel that openness. Again, we're working as if we're moving through treacle, so we want to move very slowly in towards these poses, very slowly as we're working deep in towards the hip joint. We don't want to misalign anything, we just want to create a little bit more flexibility in towards these spaces. And the way in which we can do that through our yoga practice is holding poses for longer. Perfect. Amazing. So we're going to come in towards the other side. So whichever way that you were crossing the legs over, make sure you take the feet towards the other side. You will notice when you come into your forward fold which side you just went into, because it will feel slightly different as you fold. You'll feel that in towards the hips a little bit differently. So again, making sure that the knees are directly below the heels. We're going to take an inhale, so we're going to lift ourselves up. And then exhaling, just gently melting yourself forward towards the front. So again, if you have any impingements, any kind of feelings around the joint, feel free to just bring yourself out and just come into a normal cross-legged position without the knees directly below the heels. So folding forward to wherever's comfortable for you, maybe having a starting reference. So for me, it's having the block higher up, and then I'll come into a space where I will lower the block as we come halfway. And I may even think about removing it, but it's just working out where we are in our body on any specific day. Learning to be the observer and to be present. Coming into a minute into the pose. So we've got 2 minutes left. As mentioned, you might feel that you kind of going into a mental space where you feel that you want to move, or you've got an itch somewhere, or wherever it is that you may want to just kind of realign yourself. And just knowing that this is the the mental body making connections with the physical body. So we're coming into halfway. If you want to go deeper, feel free to. If you're coming deeper, maybe just rippling the spine forwards, taking an inhale, feeling those sitting bones rock towards the back of the mat, and then coming down a little bit deeper. So as I mentioned, the mental mind, the monkey mind, might be telling us that we've got an itchy nose, we need to move, it doesn't feel right. And what we need to learn within our yoga practice, our yin practice, is that it's just the mind trying to default from what we're actually working on. In this kind of default or derailing, stops the body from listening to itself, and therefore won't allow you to go deeper into the pose. Got 20 seconds left into the pose. And then slowly, wherever you are, just walking the hands back in towards you. So really starting to feel that stretch in towards the back of the legs. Doesn't matter how deep you went. and then we lift the gaze up in towards center. So for me, I can feel that sensation running through the legs, almost like a kind of a percussion, a kind of crescendo, kind of like releasing of pressure, of the meridian lines of the energy running through the body. So just releasing the legs out towards the side, and again just gently windscreen wiping them from one side to the next, working slowly so we can feel that space. Yin is a really good kind of like practice if you're into running or kind of any kind of standing for long periods of time, because we can really start to feel those muscles kind of tense up and create a lot of tension into the body. Perfect. So we're going to come in towards our dragon pose. So again, we're going to hold for 3 minutes each. So we're going to gently bring ourselves in towards seated. So we've got into our tabletop. I've got a bolster here in case anyone wanted to have themselves a little propped up. Sometimes when you're spending a long period of time, you want some little support under the pelvis. And that can be a form of kind of a couple of pillows. For me personally, I prefer to have it a little bit further back in towards the thigh. So it's almost like it's telling the nervous system that I want to, like it's supported, it can relax. And then as I get deeper, I can pull that kind of pillow a little bit towards the front. We want to, if we can, to have the knee directly directly above the foot. And so it might be that you start up here and we feel a compression around that right hip. So it might be that it's too much. And if that is, then just slowly bring yourself out. Give yourself a little bit more padding underneath the hips. The hips raise a little bit higher. And by doing that, you'd bring the knee a little bit closer. So coming to wherever's comfortable for you. Every time you come to the mat, that's the beauty of yoga, is that it's every time you come, your body will be different. We eat different things, we move differently, we hold different stress. We've aged. There's lots of different things from week to week when we come back towards our practice. And therefore it's learning to observe this practice and to observe the spaces within the body. So again, we're holding this for 3 minutes with 2.5 minutes. It might be that you want to close down the eyes, release into the shoulders. If there's any issues, then maybe bring yourself back up onto your hands, but just finding that comfortable space. Remembering that we want to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, but we don't want to be in pain. And so this is the big difference in towards the yoga practice. Again, any sensations that we're feeling in towards the hips, we might start to clench into the jaw. So we just want to find a space where we're not clenching at all. So giving them a little bit of a wiggle, a little bit of a sway from side to side, just to release out through the jaw. So as we come in towards the last minute, it might be that you want to just wriggle a little bit deeper. So maybe that's taking the knee a bit further away. And just kind of moving a little bit further down in towards that resting space that you have with the pillows underneath the pelvis. It might mean moving the block underneath the elbows a little bit further so the arms come down towards the ground. So whatever's comfortable for you in your body. We also want to be aiming to keep the knee close towards the shoulder on the right. If we splay it out towards the side, we can get issues in towards the hip joint, or kind of like we can find a bit of stress in towards the hip joint, which we're not looking to do in this pose. So finding that comfortable spot and just finding that edge and moving deeper if and when you can.
10 more seconds into the pose. And then gently just bringing ourselves back up. Hands underneath the shoulders. We just gently take the hips towards the back. We take the hands a little bit further and we come down onto our knees if we can, if it's available. Otherwise, just coming down onto the bottom and taking the legs out in front. For me personally, it's quite nice just to come into almost wide leg, child's pose legs, hands down towards the knees. So the release that I receive is in towards the compression that we had around that right hip and in towards kind of the groin line that we have on the left. So it's a nice kind of release in towards the body, and then that groin line kind of comes down in towards the inside of that left thigh. And that's all we're doing. We're just looking in towards those spaces, feeling and observing those spaces and looking to start to open them. Getting those stretches and feeling that space, observing the body. So coming in towards the other side, we're going to take the left foot towards the front. Again, you might find that different bodies, different feelings, different sensations are different depending on each side of the body. I'm right-footed, so the left automatically feels a little bit tighter. And that's totally fine. So we line ourselves up so the foot comes underneath the knee if we can. And then if you want to, propping up the hip, just giving that bolster or the pillow, placing under the pelvis, or for me, I prefer it just underneath the back thigh. And then we come into holding the pose once more. So we're going to hold it for 3 minutes. So coming to wherever's comfortable, hugging the knee in towards the body. So we feel that kind of, although we're looking for a rest into the pose, into the body, we're looking to relax, we still need to have a kind of a pose which we're holding with intent. So we're still kind of activating slightly into the pose. If you want to, releasing the head. So you get a nice stretch down the back of the neck. Another good nugget to be aware of in our yin practice with the breath is that if we take the breath and we lengthen the exhales, we're able to slow the mind and slow the breath, and also slow the heart rate down a little bit. So if we feel claustrophobic in any way, or we feel that we're uncomfortable and we don't want to hold, if we tune in towards our breath and make those breaths a little bit longer, we're able to hold and work a little bit deeper. So we're coming into halfway, so we're 1.5 minutes into the pose. Maybe you want to shuffle the hips a little bit further back. Maybe you want to release into the shoulders a little bit further. Maybe you have the head supported and you want to release the head, or maybe you want to go the opposite way and you've gone too far and you want to just build that back up. Find that support without losing that tension, and then hold here for the rest of the pose. There's no wrong or right, so it's just learning where you are and how you feel. Got 0.5 minute left into the pose, so just breathing, finding that space. Perfect. So we're just going to gently bring our hand under the shoulders so we bring ourselves up. And then again, if you can, if it's available, just slowly taking the hips towards the back. And we're going to tuck that leg in. And we slowly release ourselves back onto our knees. Again, moving as slowly as possible. So we're able to find the benefits of the release, but we're also able to feel how the body feels in itself. Observing those changes, whether you feel the release deeper into one side or the other. There's no right or wrong, it's just learning what your body feels like, observing that space. So we're going to come in towards a similar pose, but we're going to come into a quad stretch instead. So this time I'm taking the right foot forward. So again, you might want to do this either with a bolster underneath to support the legs, or you might just want to just come in towards more of a kind of a yang pose. It can be useful to have something to place the hands on, so I'm going to just maneuver my bolster so I've got my hands on both, that and the brick. And I just want to find a bit of comfort. So I want to, if you've got any issues with the knees, feel free to roll the mat over or grab a blanket. But this time we're going to come in towards bending that back leg. We're not going to hold for as long, but we want to find that stretch into the quad. It might be that you want to use a strap around the foot, and that's totally fine. Feel free to just roll or place the pillows for support under that knee if you want to, under that thigh, sorry. And that just gives a little bit more ease in towards that kind of stretch. Again, if you want to have the hand towards the block or onto the knee, feel free to. And we're just gently going to take the gaze towards the front or down towards the ground, or maybe closing the eyes, and we just feel that stretch into the quads. So this one we're only going to hold for 2 minutes. And slowly, as you start to feel the body start to release, so as you are mentally telling the body that it's okay to be in this pose. Sometimes there's that kind of golden moment where it just releases. It just says it's okay, and just almost like a final moment of butter melting in a pan. It just kind of just disappears all of a sudden, and that's what the tension happens in the muscles. All of a sudden it's gone from this hard block of butter to this melting pot in the saucepan. So that's what we're looking for in our muscles. Doesn't matter how far or how long it takes. We're just working deeper in towards the spot, into the body and into ourselves. So the more times we come back to our yin practice, back to our yoga practice, the more we're able to observe and see these experiences through the physical self. We've got half a minute left into the pose. Perfect, and we're going to gently release. So we just release the back leg, hands come down towards the ground for support, and just gently releasing ourselves. So this time we're just lengthening towards the front leg. We hold here because we might have a little bit of issue in towards the lumbar spine. That's totally fine, and we slowly maneuver that foot towards the back of the mat, and we come back in towards that kneeling. So again, any issues of any form, just coming more into a more of a release with the feet out towards the front, and that's totally fine. Taking a moment just to observe the body, observing the left and the right, seeing if we feel any different into the left or the right, and that's totally fine. Perfect. And then slowly we're going to work in towards the other side. So maneuvering the bolster. For myself, it might be that you don't need one. It might be that you want to maneuver your pillows, and that's totally fine. So this time we're going to bring our left foot forward. I'm going to roll that bolster, if you've got cushions, pushing it underneath that thigh at the back. And maybe you want to use the block next to the foot to put your hand on for support, or maybe you're happy placing the elbow like I was. So coming in towards the second pose, we're going to just gently lift our toes up at the back. We take a hold of the foot, so we start to feel that stretch. We adjust, and then when you're ready, just finding that space. Feeling that stretch in towards the quad muscle. It might be that you've got a strap around the foot and you're only lifting the foot up just a little bit off the mat. But as long as you're feeling that stretch, the more we come back to the practice, the more that we'll find that we're creating space into the body. It's amazing where the mind will take us when we hold in stillness in the space of being uncomfortable. Self-drive and self-will is created from doing the things that we don't necessarily want to do, but seeing how it can better ourselves at the end. What we can learn from it, not just the actual learning, but also the life experience. So again, we're holding for 1 more minute and just observing that space within us. Maybe it's mental, maybe it's physical. Any pinching pains or anything like that, just pull yourself out. Otherwise, we're just looking for that deep stretch in towards the muscles at the front of the hip, down towards the knee. Got 20 seconds left into the pose. The final few moments, if you want to go deeper, feel free to. And then again, we just gently release ourselves, release that back leg, making sure that when we lower it, we don't have any issues into the knee. And then just gently just maneuvering ourselves so the hips come towards the back. So we feel that stretch in towards the back of the leg, release. And then slowly removing that back leg so we come back into kneeling at the back of the mat. Finding a bit of release in towards the front of the body, into the front of the legs. Amazing. So we've been working deep in towards the hips. So we're going to come in towards our Savasana, which is our final resting pose. If you've got your bolsters and you've got your pillows next to you, then just taking them out towards the front. We're going to take the take the block out towards the side. We're going to take the feet up and over, and then we have that kind of bend in towards the legs as we come in towards our supported Savasana. So as you know, Savasana is our final resting pose. It can be nice just to have a little bit of space into the body. So by lifting the legs up, we're able to give ourselves that space. We want the palms up towards the sky. So we have the shoulder blades, they're flat towards the ground. We close the eyes. And we just give ourselves a couple of minutes just to release onto the mat. We can feel the sensations running through the hips, through the thighs.
So wherever you are, taking an inhale. Exhaling, just letting the lips part as we just gently let the body melt down towards the ground. We feel the back of the body supported from the mat, so that's the back of the head, shoulder blades, the hips, backs of the hands and the heels, all just being held solidly and supported. So you're letting everything else in the body to relax and release. So this time we're going to take an inhale. On the exhale, we're just going to start to wiggle the toes, wiggle the fingers. We're going to bring the knees into the chest. We're going to give ourselves a lovely big hug. So just giving ourselves a little bit of a shake from side to side to release through the body, through the spine. And then gently and slowly, we're just going to bring ourselves in towards a comfortable seated position at the front of the mat. So just facing towards the front of the room. Keeping the eyes closed, hands come down next to us. Taking a lovely big inhale. Exhaling, just noticing how the body feels. We're going to bring the hands into prayer in front of the heart. May the light in me honour the light in you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me for that yin practice. I hope that you enjoyed getting deeper into the body, working in towards the hips and just feeling that space start to open. If you've got any ideas or any kind of comments or anything, feel free to drop them in towards the box below. I'd love to come back to you. I'd like to make any changes. But yeah, so otherwise, have a wonderful week. Thank you.